everybody, Katie Kimball here for Kids Cook Real Food and the Healthy Parenting Connector, where, as always, we're trying to connect parents who just really want to raise healthy kids with the experts who have the information they need. And as much as I talk about food, I know that sleep is a massive component to our health. And in our family, sleep for our kids is a non-negotiable, but I stink at it personally. So I asked Dr. Whitney Roban to come and help me, and you guys can listen as we learn about healthy sleep. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Whitney.
Thanks for having me.
So a quick official intro. Dr. Whitney Roban is a family educational and corporate sleep specialist. This is probably not what she said she wanted to be when she grew up because she didn't know that job existed. She's the founder of Solve Our Sleep. And she's also the author of the Devin and Evan book series, a sought-after presenter on sleep to corporations and schools. I can't even imagine. I would love to hear you present to children. That's so interesting. And Dr. Roban's mission is to provide the sleep education and support that parents, teachers, students, and employees need to succeed. I'm so glad she's here today for this invaluable education and training for us that started with her being a clinical psychologist. So let's start there. Definitely a sleep specialist was not what you said you wanted to be when you grew up. How did that path kind of get you from clinical psychology to sleep?
So I was trained as a cognitive behavioral psychologist. I worked with kids, and then I was doing some research. So my career really was focused on the behavior, improving the behavior of children and adults. And then I became a mom, and I had my own children who did not sleep. There really wasn't a field of sleep coaching back then. My oldest is 18, so I've been doing this for a long time. And I would give advice to people in Mommy and Me groups after I had my first child, and the head of the 14th Street Y in New York City said to me, "Why don't you do this professionally?" And I said, "There isn't really a profession." She said, "Well, there should be because you're really good at it."
How cool.
And, I was moving to the West Coast, and I had my second child, and no kids were sleeping there either. And that's when I said, okay, I think I need to start, this business. And the first thing I did was open up my family sleep practice. So I've been doing that for about 15 years now.
That's amazing. So wait, you're telling me that people all over America have trouble with getting their kids to sleep?
Right? All over the world.
Oh, no, I believe that. And quite honestly, we mentioned in the intro, corporate and adults. I mean, I think adults are having more trouble every year. Sleep is becoming more and more of a massive problem.
It really is, especially now during the global pandemic. Before the pandemic, about 30% of the population would be diagnosed with clinical sleep deprivation.
Oh, so
now
that's intense.
That's significant before, but now it's up to 78%. So, it's not surprising because of all the changes and the stress and anxiety that everybody's experiencing. But sleep has always been a big issue, but now more than ever, people are really struggling.
Wow. And that does make sense because we know that stress is another pillar of health and they're all connected. So how do you balance, or what is the difference in how you approach family sleep, educational sleep, and corporate sleep?
So like I said, what I first started doing about 15 years ago was having this family sleep practice. So any member of a family that needs sleep help can come to me. Even though I'm a sleep psychologist, I don't consider it therapy. So it's considered consulting, but it really is using my tools as a cognitive behavioral psychologist to work with parents, to get their kids to sleep, to work directly with kids. I work really directly with the kids from middle school on through college and their 20s. And then I work directly with adults. So that's the family sleep practice. Okay. The educational sleep practice actually came out of the book series that you mentioned in my intro. So what I realized is that there are so many books out there for parents about healthy sleep, but no books that spoke directly to kids.
Nice.
So part of my career before I became a sleep psychologist was in publishing, and I created psychoeducational games for therapists and teachers to use. And so I have this part of my creative brain that really is put to rest when I'm a psychologist, but I used it again to write these children's books. And I started going into schools, reading them to kids. And what I realized is that kids really, really are they need this education and they want it. The teachers couldn't believe how much they wanted to talk about sleep.
Wow.
So that's kind of more the educational field of sleep. And then I wrote a curriculum, the first ever school sleep curriculum. And I've been doing that in schools, well, in schools and now virtually. But this year was the first year it was in schools, part of health curriculum, elementary, middle school, and high schoolers. And that's really been exciting. So I work with the kids. I do professional development workshops for teachers. I work with parents in the schools. And now that's, all done virtually,
Yeah.
but needed, now more than ever, because teenagers, since I have two, wow, has their sleep been affected through this pandemic?
Mm. Now I have heard a lot of really happy stories where people say, now what has the silver lining been in shelter in place time? And I know this is one of my like celebrations as well, is that kids, especially teenagers, are getting more sleep. Now that's probably in the families who kept a bedtime, right? Which we did. That was hyper important to me.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot that like avoiding that early morning wake up has been incredible. So I have a 15-year-old, and
Mm-hmm.
at the very beginning when school shut down, he was sleeping until like 10:30. And I have a policy, never wake a sleeping teenager unless it's necessary, because I know sleep is so like mentally health protective and brain building, all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
We didn't wake him. And it was really interesting to watch as he got a few weeks of really good sleep,
Mm-hmm.
that his natural wake up time started to dial back. And I said, Paul, I wonder if that means you were pretty sleep deprived and
Sure.
you're now maybe a little more caught up.
Yeah.
And so I have a confession about sleep deprivation. There are some nights where I'm logging 3 or 4 hours in bed, and I'm working harder to get to at least a 6, 7, 8. I know 6 is not a good goal, but it's an improvement.
Better
So
than 3.
big question,
Mm-hmm.
how much sleep do adults need? I don't want to know.
Oh no, Katie. So adults need between 7 and 9 hours, on average about 8. So this is a good way of knowing whether you're a 7, 8, or 9 hour sleeper. And that's to take a week. That's vacation. Or I told a lot of people now, during COVID, it's a good time to try this, where you go to bed the same time every night, or you try to, and you don't set an alarm. And you see what time your body naturally wakes up. When you're not sleep deprived, you should be able to wake up without an alarm clock. Most of us can't. So now is a good time, if we're not running into the office or, waking up early to get our kids to school. I did this years ago and I found out I was an 8-hour sleeper, and it's really held true. 8 hours, I just feel great. 9 hours, even better. 7 hours, I can get by. Anything less than that, I'm not having a good day. So it's really important for adults to get that 8 hours. Teens need 9.
That's a great, easy, practical test. And then obviously, no matter when you're listening to this interview, hopefully it's not still shelter in place pandemic. My fingers and toes are crossed. But I mean, even if you're in a busy family, and you do have to get up typically to get your kids up, what if you had your spouse who has to go to work, and maybe you have more flexibility, just kind of run breakfast, or the kids run breakfast, kids cook real food for a week, like this is an important kind of test. And I'm glad you said go to bed at the same time. I'm assuming that's a pretty important piece of that test.
Mm-hmm. And that's been the, when you said that teens have been getting some more sleep, the issue is they have, but at the wrong times. Like many teens have been going to sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning and sleeping late. Your teen doesn't, so kudos to him or her. But, also the time of day you're sleeping, so we can keep our sleep-wake cycles, or what's known as our circadian rhythm, in check. It's really important. So yeah, consistency
Is it true that adolescents, their circadian rhythm does shift a little, so they are
um,
supposed to stay up a bit later, but not quite 3 a.m?
Yes. So that's also a problem when, schools normally, when we're back in school and the kids have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, teens are just not meant to sleep those hours. So really it's difficult once you're in puberty. It's difficult for a teen to fall asleep before 11. And how do they log those 9 hours? Well, most don't. And that's why most of our teen population is, significantly sleep deprived. So maybe they'll get back to it, back to on track with good sleep during the pandemic. And if they get back to school, hopefully in September, we're going to have to do a lot of sleep, adults as well. I do a lot of corporate workshops, normally in person. And now that, a lot of the states are opening in phase 2 and 3 and people are getting ready to go back to the office, because sleep is such a, has an impact on our well-being. It's really important for corporations to get their employees good sleep.
Mm.
I do a lot of virtual workshops now, and hopefully we'll be able to do them in person again, because not only does it affect the employee and how well they do in the office, but it affects the company's bottom line too. If you're having an employee that's inefficient, inattentive, sick, not showing up for work. So yeah, it affects all of us.
Yeah, and replace the word employee with child, teenager, spouse.
Right.
The household doesn't run as well. So I know for some people, sleep is totally not a priority. And obviously I'm outed as one who, even though I know intellectually how important it is. Will you give us like the top 3 reasons that people should intrinsically be motivated to sleep? Because if you don't, X, Y, and Z will happen, like just the 30-second, uh-oh.
Yeah. So, if you want to think of the 3, think of mind, how it affects us, cognitively, physically, and behaviorally. So physically, of course, it affects our immune system when we get sick more, something we don't want during the pandemic or any time.
Right.
So we have to think of that from a physical standpoint. It's really related to significant medical issues such as obesity and diabetes and cancer. So that's important enough. If it was only affected our physical health, that would still be enough to make it a priority.
True.
Our emotional health, I actually read an article today about the mental health of teens really suffering, adults as well.
Yeah.
Anxiety levels have gone up. The number one thing that makes it difficult to fall asleep is stress and anxiety. And that's so high right now. So we need to think of our emotional health, and sleep deprivation really makes anxiety, depression, mood disorders worse. So that's the second aspect.
It's a vicious cycle.
Vicious.
The more anxious you feel, the worse sleep you get. The worse sleep you get, the more anxious you feel.
Yeah. So, anybody with a diagnosed mental issue such as, anxiety, depression, it will be worse. And if you don't experience it, you can start to when you're sleep deprived. And then behaviorally, of course, like you said, you need to run a household, or you need to be successful at work or at school, and it affects our productivity and our attention and our organization. I mean, basically, there's nothing that sleep deprivation doesn't have a negative effect upon. On the flip side, though, to be positive, there's nothing that healthy sleep can have a positive effect on.
That is a fabulous, that's a great place to go. I noticed for myself, day 1 after a night of really short sleep, I can still rock it. I can still push through. And day 2, maybe it's day 2, I am a mess. I'm angry. I'm foggy. I forget what I'm doing. And so that's just me, but I'm sure people, react to short sleep.
Yeah. Well, it's sleep deprivation is cumulative. So yes, we can get by in a couple of days. So when I work with parents of little kids and we get them on a really good sleep schedule and it's super early, like 6 or 7, and they say, well, now we can never, go out for dinner, have a family, gathering. And I said, yeah, you can every so often, but you don't want to make a habit of it, because over time sleep deprivation is cumulative. And I think that's why also during the pandemic, at first everybody was kind of laughing, oh, they weren't sleeping great, their sleep schedules were thrown off, but now it's serious. I've been busier than ever because everybody's starting months in to feel significantly the negative effects of sleep deprivation, and it's taking its toll on the population.
That's so tricky. It's good to know that we can have a little flexibility, but yeah, I've noticed, our church does Vacation Bible School normal summers, not this summer, of course, but it's from like 6 to 8:15 at night. And for those kindergartners, those first graders, we had 2 summers in a row where my kids had a cold. By the end of that, in the summer, I said, we got to find one in the morning. Like it wasn't worth it. It was clear to me.
Yeah. And it's great that you even recognize that, it's related between getting sick and sleep. And my kids, like I said, now are 15 and 18, but they've, lived with a sleep specialist their whole life. So, they'll say after a while, oh, I didn't do so well in a test. Maybe it's because I didn't sleep so great this week. Or I, played so great in the game. I scored so many points in basketball. It's because I got a great night of sleep the night before. So you're just really recognizing that they're related is a good first step.
I love that. I mean, education is the first step. So way to go, parents. High five those of you who are watching this, or, whoever you are, but you're probably a parent on the Healthy Parenting Connector. And so knowledge is power. Connecting the way we feel and behave and perform with our sleep is a huge first step. Pretty practical. What are your most practical tips? Because I just love, like, somebody tell me what to do. Get healthy sleep.
So, and you went over them a little bit, Katie, which is great. You talked about sleep schedules. So consistent sleep schedules are really important and age appropriate. So teens realize what's important, not 3 a.m. It's, I say have a consistent bedtime, but that doesn't mean 3 a.m. So that's really important, consistent sleep schedules. And then really appropriate and consistent sleep routines are really important. Doing things relaxing every night before bed, the same kind of thing. Like for me, I take a shower, turn off my electronics, get into bed, do some stretching, sleep meditation, and I do that every single night before bed. That's also really important. And your sleep environment, people don't really think about that.
Okay.
So cool is really important, quiet, dark, and uncluttered. We don't want papers all over. We don't want, if you can, have your work desk in your room, keeping a cool room between 60 and 68 degrees, making sure it's dark. So all those really important to help with sleep. And then your behavior during the day. What a lot of people don't realize is what we do during the day can affect what we do at night. So we want to make sure we eat earlier. So we're not eating big heavy meals before bed, caffeine, cutting out earlier in the day. Alcohol is a very bad thing to do before bed, even though people think it helps them fall asleep. It does, but it doesn't give us good sleep. It gives us interrupted sleep. So our behaviors during the day. And my last tip would be something you also mentioned, Katie, which is prioritizing sleep. So I always tell people, when I do these workshops, think of your priority hierarchy and what's on there. And most people say, oh, I want to be successful at work and have happy, kids, and I want to be happy and, be healthy. And you can't have all those things if sleep is not part of that priority hierarchy. So accept that it's important, respect sleep in your family, teach sleep. Your kids follow your behavior, so show them that sleep is important to you. And when you make it a priority, life will really change for the better.
I told everyone at the outset here that this is for me selfishly, and you all just get to listen because I know all this stuff in my brain, and I just, for some reason, it's my kryptonite. I find all that sleep routines. I was like, oh, I have no sleep routine whatsoever.
Right. Well, most of us take, or we're on the phone or the iPad or, binging Netflix, and then we shut it off and think oh, we're just going to fall asleep. And we're not light switches. We don't just click off the switch and just go to sleep. So people think, oh, I have such a hard time falling asleep, but they're not thinking about what they're doing prior to going to sleep. And those relaxing activities and having a set routine really help with, insomnia.
And I'm sure people can set their routine based on their personality. There are probably better and worse things to do, but as far as global, this must be part of your routine. I'm going to guess screens off.
Yeah.
Or at least some time.
Screens off. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's hard. That's hard on your eyes and your brain running around. And,
yes. And science, has proven that the blue light that comes in from electronics, especially the phones and the iPads that are right in front of our eyes, trick the brain into thinking it's daytime, and our bodies stop producing the key hormone we need to feel tired, which is melatonin. And what people tend to do then is they just go to CVS or Rite Aid and they buy melatonin, but that's not a long-term solution. Your long-term solution is to change your behavior, not take a supplement.
Sure. Do the blue blocker glasses help with some of that?
So I say to teens, a lot of the teens say, well, I'm so busy after school, and then I first have to come home. I have all this homework to do. I have to be in front of a screen before bed. So that's when I say, buy the blue block.
Yeah, and if you've followed me for any amount of time, you've seen me do interviews with them sometimes at night, or I'll hop on Facebook Live at 9 or 10 p.m. and I've got mine on for sure. And I have such trouble gauging what makes a difference in my sleep because I have no routine. So, I got to get better at this. Thank you so much, Dr. Whitney Roban. This has been really convicting for me. And I don't think we can hear this enough. Consistent bedtime, consistent routine, dark bedroom, reconsider nightlights for those kids, quiet bedroom, cold bedroom. None of these are incredibly hard. Right. And maybe just if all at once sounds overwhelming, try just pick one, do it tonight. Pick another one, do it 3 days from now. We're all about the baby steps to make it doable. And I really appreciate.
Right. And that's a good point. You have to do it, but you have to keep doing it. You can't try these things once or twice and say, it takes a while to break a bad habit. So you have to be consistent. And then, I think about it when I talk about sleep. I just, can't wait to get into bed, because I love my bedtime routine, and I love the whole experience of falling asleep. So I think it will not only help, but you'll really enjoy it. It's a nice thing to do before bed.
Yeah, that's a great tip too, is to kind of design a bedtime routine that you look forward to,
Yeah,
that will motivate you to do it. Yeah.
yeah, of course.
Cool. Well, I'm going to work on designing mine. So by the time this interview airs, or again, we're recording this in June of 2020. The pandemic is like in this weird, mushy middle place, hopefully middle,
Mhm.
hopefully there is an end. We
Yeah.
don't know. But whenever this interview airs, it's always a good time to start solving your sleep, right? Dr. Whitney Roban of Solve Our Sleep. Thank you again so much for being here.
Thanks, Katie.
Yes, everyone, we will be back next week with another episode of the Healthy Parenting Connector. And by the time we share this, hopefully I will have some good news to share about my own sleep challenges and sleep successes that I've been able to, implement based on the tips in this interview. This has been super helpful. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.